Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all keeping safe and well, and welcome to my February roundup for this year. January was quite a quiet month for me, a nice relaxing start to the year, getting back to normal after all the work on the kitchen and getting a new cooker and stuff. So it's been nice to just get back into a normal routine again. And then February's been a little bit busier in terms of going out and doing stuff. So I've been out to Kew Gardens for a day, which was lovely. And I went out to the cinema with a couple of friends of mine, which was good. And one of those cinema visits directly led to me watching a few more animated films at home as well. Not Aardman films, which I've covered in the last couple of months with Wallace and Gromit and other stuff, but Disney stuff this time. So it's been good to look at a few more films in that regard. And then there's also been a few TV shows I've been watching as per usual, of course. So there's a fair amount to cover in this post again. None of it's sponsored or gifted, and there's a lot more information in the blog posts that I've been writing. So there's a few bits and pieces for you to check out if you want more detail. But yeah, that's all I have to say by way of preamble, really. There's nothing else to say. So I'm just going to crack straight on with it, and I hope you enjoy it. So I'll start off my visit to Kew Gardens, which I hadn't been to for a little while. I went there last year for a sensory tour, which was lovely. So it was nice to go back there again and see a bit more of it. I went there specifically to see their Orchid Festival this time, which is an annual event they hold every year, but this is the first time I've been along to it. And each year they kind of look at a different country, and this year it was Peru, which coincidentally is also the setting for the new Paddington film, which I haven't seen yet. I'll get around to it at some point. But yeah, this Orchid Festival was very nice. Lots of pockets of colour spread throughout the greenery and the Princess of Wales Conservatory, which is a huge glass house. So yeah, it was lovely to see a lot of that stuff. Obviously, there's a lot of information boards in there as well, which I didn't really read, either because people in the way or it just was a bit difficult to kind of spend time reading those. So it would have been nice to kind of have a tour and get more context into what I was looking at. But nevertheless, it was nice to see a lot of the installations there, lots of pretty colours and things, and they had some models of animals mixed in as well. So it's kind of arranged in an artistic way in some respects. So yeah, it was kind of nice to have a look around all of that. I'm glad I went along to that. Nice little walkabout. And I also checked out some of the other parts of the gardens as well. I had a look at an installation they've got called the Hive, which is a big kind of metal honeycomb structure with this kind of sound installation inside that's kind of a little bit immersive. And then there's also a lake I found as well, which has got plenty of ducks on it, and it's just a nice relaxing area to kind of walk around and stuff. So yeah, I made the most of my day there. Had a nice kind of pizza in one of the restaurant places there as well, and yeah, it was just nice little walk around Kew Gardens for a day. And there's still more of the gardens I've got to see. I mean, the whole gardens are always worth going to at different times of the year because of obviously the plants changing with the seasons and stuff like that. So whenever you go there during the year, there's always something new to see, something different to see. So yeah, I'll be going back there again at some point. It'd be nice to go again, perhaps do another one of their sensory tours as well, because obviously they change those every so often as well. So yeah, I enjoyed that little visit to Kew Gardens. That was nice. So then moving on to the cinema, and the first film I saw with one of my friends this month was Mufasa, the Lion King, which was released just before Christmas, so we thought we'd check it out, see what it was like. And this is a prequel to the 2019 movie The Lion King, which itself is a photorealistic remake of the 1994 cartoon classic The Lion King that I loved in my childhood. And I decided to check it out again because I hadn't seen that film for a long time, the original, and I hadn't seen the remake either at all. So I signed up to Disney Plus because I reactivate my subscription on there now and again just to check out a few bits and pieces here and there. So yeah, I rewatched the original, which is still an absolute classic. I still like it very much. So I've now bought that on Blu-ray. And I also checked out the 2019 remake, which is okay. I mean, it's not as good as the original film by any means. The photorealistic animation is very, very impressive. It does look very realistic. But the sacrifice there is kind of the expressions of the characters and kind of the emotional feedback you get from them, which is very limited. They've really kind of stuck rigidly, or it feels like it's how animals really look, which is great. But as I say, you lose that kind of emotional connection, which when you've got a big scene like Mufasa's death, it just doesn't have the same impact as it does in the original film. And because it's relatively realistic, they can't really have a lot of fun with the animation in the same way that they do in the original film. So it's impressive to look at, but it's not quite as effective. But the story is still good and the songs are still good. Again, they're all performed better in the original film as well. The original film is basically superior, but the 2019 remake it's okay. It's watchable, but the original is always best. So I'd watched the original and the remake versions of The Lion King before I then went to the cinema and we saw the prequel, Mufasa. And yeah, it's an interesting film. Again, it's not as good as the original film, but it's an interesting storyline in terms of how Mufasa became the Lion King. In a way, there's kind of parallels with the original story, and that Mufasa, like Simba, kind of gets separated from his family and has to grow up elsewhere and then comes back to take his rightful place as king. But as I say, it's interesting because we learn how he meets the various characters that we're familiar with from The Lion King, and also we learn how Scar becomes his enemy and how that relationship develops over time. And yeah, there's some nice songs in there, but nothing memorable. They kind of serve their purpose well in the film, but there's nothing really that sticks in your head like Circle of Life and Hakuna Matata and stuff like that does. But yeah, it's a nice way to spend a couple of hours, but it's nothing that I would watch again particularly. It was just a fun way to spend an afternoon with friends, really. And then talking of the original Lion King films again quickly, Disney Plus also has the 2 direct-to-video sequels that were produced after it as well, which I'd never seen before, so it was interesting to check them out as well. And when I bought The Lion King, it was in a box set with those 2 sequels, because it was the cheapest and easiest way to get it, really. So I thought, well, I'll get the whole trilogy, why not? And they're not as good as the original film. The animation quality isn't as good because the budget's lower and all that, and the stories aren't as great, the songs aren't as good, but nevertheless, they're entertaining enough. It's nice to have them on the side as well, just to have the complete trilogy. And then having checked out the original and remake versions of The Lion King on Disney Plus to compare them, I thought, while I've got my subscription open, I'll do the same for Aladdin as well, because that was another of my favourite films during my childhood. And it's been great to rewatch the original Aladdin film. It's still such a classic, still a lot of fun. Robin Williams is, of course, amazing as the genie. He really blows everyone else away in that film. And there are great songs in there too. And it's just, as I say, a lot of fun. So then I also watched the sequels as well to that original film, Return of Jafar, which I did remember from my childhood, so I did have that on video. And then King of Thieves, which I hadn't seen before. The third film is actually the best of those 2 sequels, because the middle film, Return of Jafar, doesn't have Robin Williams playing the genie. It's actually the guy who plays Homer from The Simpsons playing him instead. And he's good, but not as good as Robin Williams. And just in general, the whole film just isn't great. It's okay, but the story and the animation and everything just doesn't hold up as well. King of Thieves is actually a better film because Robin Williams is back as the genie, and the story's better and the songs are a bit better and stuff like that. So I got the original film on Blu-ray and then the 2 sequels on DVD, which was the easiest way to get them, and I don't need them on Blu-ray anyway. So yeah, it's been nice to get the trilogy of those films. They're a lot of fun. So then after watching the original animated version of Aladdin and its 2 direct-to-video sequels, I then watched the 2019 remake, which is a live-action adaptation. And whereas the Lion King remake was kind of a shot-by-shot remake of the original in many respects, this live-action version of Aladdin is very different in many ways. The basic story is still the same, all the key story beats are there, and all the classic songs are there, that kind of thing. But in many ways, it's very different as well. There's different aspects to the story. Some of the characters are a bit different, that kind of thing. Partly because they have to for live action, and partly just because they wanted to explore the story in a different way. So yeah, it still works. It's still entertaining. Will Smith is still very good as the genie. Not as good as Robin Williams, but he does make the role his own, and he does incorporate a few of Robin Williams' lines, just kind of a homage to him. And yeah, the other cast are good as well. There's a new song in there as well that Jasmine sings, which isn't as good as the other songs that we kind of know and love. But the big songs like Friend Like Me and Prince Ali, they're epic numbers that are performed really well. And yeah, it's an entertaining enough film. Again, entertaining enough way to kill a couple of hours. It's not something I'd buy or own, as with the Lion King remake, but it was nice to check it out. It was good fun. And then there's one other film I watched on Disney Plus this month as well, which was recommended to me by my good friend Emily, who I work with, and that's Ratatouille, which she's been a big fan of since her childhood. It's one of her favourite films, yet I'd never seen it before. And as she went to an immersive dining experience relating to the film this month, which I'll share a review of in the description below, and as I had my Disney Plus subscription open, I thought it was a good excuse to watch it. So I did, and it's good fun, to be fair. It's very entertaining. The animation by Pixar is first rate, and it's just a fun story. There's lots of humour in there and some very heartwarming moments as well. It's basically about a rat called Remy who, unlike his garbage-eating family and friends, is much more of a food connoisseur. He's got a much better nose and taste buds for different types of food, different combinations of food as well. So when he gets separated from his family and ends up in a fancy restaurant in Paris, he ends up forming a connection with this nervous new chef who isn't very capable, really. He's kind of a bit clumsy and everything, but they form this kind of unlikely friendship and develop this unique kind of cross-species method of communication so that Remy can put his culinary knowledge to good use by making this young chef cook these amazing meals for him. Obviously, they can't let anybody else find out that he's using a rat to help him cook, because obviously having a rat in the kitchen isn't normally a good idea. So yeah, it's kind of all based on that. And obviously Remy's family want him to come back, but Remy's quite happy where he is. He wants to kind of help his new friend out. And yeah, there's lots of funny moments and sweet moments, and it all comes together very nicely at the end, especially when there's this big test at the end where they kind of have to impress this food critic who is one of the hardest people it's possible to impress. So yeah, it's a very good film, to be fair. It's not something that I feel strongly I need to own or anything. I'm not going to buy it, but it was still well worth looking at. It's very entertaining, it's very funny and everything, and I can see why Emily is a big fan of it, because she likes going to restaurants and things and having different types of food, so she kind of relates to all that kind of thing. And yeah, it's just really good fun, as I say. So I'm glad I watched that. Thank you very much to Emily for that recommendation. And then back to the cinema, and the other film I saw this month was a live-action biographical movie called A Complete Unknown about Bob Dylan. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Bob Dylan's music particularly. His voice doesn't appeal to me that much. I'm not a big fan of folk music generally. But I do like some of his big classic hits that everyone knows, and I do have a lot of respect for him as an artist because he was very clever. He did have a huge impact on the music industry. He influenced a lot of people that came after him, so I do hold him in very high regard. I'm just not a big fan of his music personally. But it is very interesting, nevertheless, to see how he kind of got into the music industry like it is for a lot of artists back then. It was a very, very different environment compared to today, where people can use social media and the internet and TV and everything to kind of get themselves noticed. Back then, you didn't have all that advantage. So he really had to kind of find creative ways to figure out who to approach and how to approach them to get himself kind of out there. So it's interesting to see that and the relationships and connections he formed with like Joan Baez and Johnny Cash and the girlfriend he had at the time as well, whose name in the film is different to what it was in real life because he asked them not to use her real name. And I also didn't know about all the controversy and the chaos around him switching from acoustic to electric and how he kind of alienated a lot of his fans because he refused to play a lot of his older stuff because he just wanted to move on and pursue this kind of new direction in his career, whereas his fans wanted all the classics and that kind of stuff. So it was interesting to kind of see all that unfold. So he's a very interesting character, even though he doesn't come out of it all that well because he did get kind of very selfish and very set in his ways in terms of what he wanted to do rather than what other people wanted him to do. He was still very interesting. He's still a great character, and the guy who plays him in the film is very, very good. It's a very accurate portrayal as far as I can tell. And the settings of the time, they're very authentic, and there's music from the time as well. Obviously, a lot of it by Bob Dylan, but one or two other songs are in there as well that I know. So yeah, it's a very nicely structured film. It's very well paced, and the story is very clear. I don't know how accurate it is compared to his real life. They're bound to have changed things here and there. But overall, I get the general gist of it, and yeah, it is very good. So I'm glad I saw that, and thank you to Claire for suggesting me go and see that, because I hadn't been sure about it, but it's one of those things that's worth a go. It was much more interesting than I thought it was going to be. And then finally, in terms of TV, there are a couple of shows in particular I want to mention this month just quickly. The first of which is Torchwood, the adult spin-off from Doctor Who. I've watched series 1 of that this month, and I've written a big review of that for my blog as part of my series of Doctor Who reviews that I've been doing. And it's been great to watch that again because I hadn't seen it for quite a while. So some bits of it I remembered and some bits of it I didn't. So it's been kind of fun to be surprised by some of it again, which is kind of a nice way to do that with some TV shows, to not watch them for a while so you don't remember everything about them. And it's a pretty solid series. There's one or two slightly weaker episodes in there, but they're all entertaining to watch. And there's a lot of great action and humour and effects and all the rest of it. So yeah, it's been fun to revisit that. I'm looking forward to revisiting the later series as well. I know series 4 isn't as good. Series 3 is where it really peaks, but it'd be interesting to watch them all again. So yeah, it's been great to go through series 1 again. I've enjoyed that, and I'm going to crack straight on with series 2 next, and hopefully finish all 4 series if I can by the time Doctor Who returns on TV in April. Meanwhile, over on the Dave channel, they've got a new series of Dave Gorman's Modern Life is Goodish, which I'm thrilled about because it's fantastic, and he hasn't made that show for several years because it takes a lot of effort for him to put it together. Basically, each episode is a meticulously crafted stand-up routine about a few different topics that have got his attention, and they're all nicely weaved together and everything, and they're all illustrated by these PowerPoint slides with images and video clips and stuff like that. So it's very, very good, much funnier than perhaps that makes it sound, but it's very, very cleverly put together, and this series is no exception. There are 3 episodes. There were 4 filmed, in fact, but one was heavily focused on Greg Wallace, the MasterChef star, but given the various allegations that have come out against him since they filmed that, they had to drop it. But the 3 episodes we're left with are still very, very good, very entertaining. There's a couple of interesting guest appearances in there as well, which I won't spoil, but I was thrilled to see one person in particular, one of my favourite entertainers in there alongside him, which was good. And he's also got his found poems back as well, which the audience love. I mean, they literally cheer when he announces he's doing that again. And that's basically where he picks a story online and digs into what he calls the bottom half of the internet, or the comments underneath those stories on various websites, and pulls out some of the more ridiculous ones and everything and puts them together into this really funny found poem, as he calls it, which is then backed by a string quartet as he reads it kind of seriously, although he has to kind of stop himself from laughing sometimes. It's really well put together. So yeah, I'm really glad that's back. It's a shame it's only for 3 specials, but if he's going to do it this way, like the occasional specials here and there, I'd rather he do that rather than burning himself out by doing a whole long series of 6 episodes or whatever. So whatever we get from him is always a plus. So yeah, I'm glad that's been back. 1 episode has been broadcast on TV so far, but all 3 episodes are already online as a box set on News catch-up service, hence I've already seen them all. So yeah, it's nice to get them out of the way. It's been great to have that back. So let's hope he makes some more of those in the future, because he's still on top form. It's still great. And then apart from that, I've just been enjoying my usual comedies, really, not much to say about them. I'm still enjoying The Last Leg, for instance, and Josh Widdicombe from that was on Michael McIntyre's Big Show this month as well, as a victim of his midnight game show where he wakes people up in the middle of the night to play silly games with them. So there's some good 90s nostalgia in there with like Mr. Blobby and the Cheerleaders from Funhouse, and some of the new stars of Gladiators are in there as well, and I'm really enjoying that series too. Gladiators is still very entertaining. And then also I've enjoyed Chris McCausland on What I Lie to You, and there's also been the last in the current series of QI, and they are already filming the next series of QI, so there's that to look forward to in the future. So yeah, I've been enjoying plenty of comedies as always. And that is it. That is all I have to mention for this month. So I hope you enjoyed that and found bits and pieces of interest in there as per usual. I've already got a couple of shows booked in March and a few social events arranged as well. So I'm looking forward to all of those, and I look forward to sharing those with you next time. And I hope you had a good February, whatever you got up to, and you have a good March, whatever you might have planned. But yeah, there's nothing else to say really, so I'm just going to leave it there. So thank you very much for watching that. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe as per usual. Have fun, and yeah, I'll see you for another video very soon. Bye for now.